Governor, polls show you falling behind Trump. Any thoughts on that?
Guys,
I'm not a candidate, so we'll see if and when that changes.
Look, that's a very brief video, like the whole thing, not even just his response. The question was 10 seconds, and yet, am I the a-hole to say that does not look good for him? You're asked a question, super obvious that a question about the primary is going to come. Like, yeah, you're not technically running for office, but you're flying around the country doing stump speeches in swing states and meeting with congressmen to get them to endorse you. You're running, okay? Can we not play the game? So they ask you a question about how you're not doing well in the polls and you're being criticized all over the place and on Fox News, and your best response is to pretend that you're a roughly anthropomorphic bobblehead. This is the guy that's going to withstand months of full bore, all cannons blazing attacks from Donald Trump. I just don't look. Some people pushed back, like, a year ago when we were saying that he doesn't seem like that strong of a public speaker, that good of a campaigner, possessing of much charisma. But I feel like that's almost become the default position at this point. I think a lot of people are getting clued in that Putin Ron is gonna have a rough run. What do you think?
Yeah, and he's cold and prickly. That's his nature. He's not a happy warrior, which can be sort of the magic, the secret sauce in politics. He's the opposite. He's sort of the grim reaper. He could have just said, oh, well, we'll see where things go in a couple of weeks. But he's got this sort of attitude that he's abrasive, and that's just who he is. And the rest of the nation is sort of discovering that, and it's not wearing very well, even on a lot of Republicans.
Yeah, and I feel like the criticism that he's not likable has been going around for a while. What's amazing is that he doesn't really seem to care about that characterization. I haven't seen any indication that they're working on it. Like, he could have played that off and been like, oh yeah, Donald Trump sure does seem to enjoy running against someone who's not running against him yet. We'll see what he thinks if someone jumps in. Like, you could be affable or whatever, or you could continue to be cold but hit back. He landed on the worst of all worlds. That was not charismatic, it wasn't personable, and it came off as defensive and weak. Like, if you're a DeSantis fan, and there are still DeSantis fans, I know that you travel all over, you probably talk to a lot of them. That's why I wanted to present this video to you. I don't know what your defense of that is. I don't know what your defense of much of the way that he's been responding to these attacks would be. That pudding ad came out, there was no strong strike back from DeSantis. I expect more of that to come. What do you think? Like, what case could be made by a DeSantis stan about what we've seen so far in this race?
Well, I mean, he's good on paper, right? I mean, that's the argument. Oh, Florida governor, he came up through the ranks, he's young, he's handsome, Ivy League educated. On paper, he looks like he should be terrific, but somebody, he better start worrying about his lack of charisma and his sort of coming off as prickly, because in the end, most politics is really about personalities, not so much about policy, and even among Republicans. And when you're going up against perhaps the most, whether you like him or not, Donald Trump is arguably one of the most charismatic politicians of our lifetime. You better at least have a little bit of charisma or something that you can say to sort of say, hey, I can kind of be funny too. If you're going to be this robot who comes across as abrasive and cold all the time, it's just he doesn't have a prayer. And at some point, he's got to have somebody around him who's willing to tell him that, or else it's going to be a very short primary season.
Yeah, is he, like, I know people have been trying to come up with like historic parallels. Is he Scott Walker? Is he like like a MAGA revamped Jeb Bush? Like, I mean, Jeb Bush was kind of like coasting on the name, but he was a semi-popular figure. Like, do you see a historic parallel for what Ron DeSantis might be facing right now?
I think it's being maybe too gracious to Ron DeSantis to say Jeb Bush, because Jeb Bush could sort of be likable at times, and Scott Walker could sort of be kind of soft-spoken at times. Ron DeSantis seems like he is wound so tight. He's like that kid who knows everything, and I'm gonna force it down your throat. And he's got to like hold himself back, and all you have to do is sort of jab him, and he's gonna explode. Well, that has to change. He's got to figure out a way to sort of take the shots and sort of have some fun with it, or else he's toast.
Yeah, and don't jab him, don't make him explode. There'll be pudding everywhere. And see how easy it is to attack? He's a laughingstock. Sorry, DeSantis fans. Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.